Hello and welcome back to Perspectives. On today's show, we have our usual roundup of the news affecting the Sikh community across the world, and we take an in-depth look into what's happening at Punjab University. A story that has the potential not just to blow open Indian governance of the state, but has the first rumblings of something more significant that could ultimately bring about maybe a new sovereign Sikh state. Well, all this and more on today's show, but joining me as always is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Angus, and good morning to our viewers. We hope you had an amazing weekend. For those of us in Metro Vancouver, the Canucks lost last night, but hey, that's okay. They won the night before, so we can't have everything. But what we can have are your comments on the screen at the end of the show, so stick around, see if your comments made the grade, and don't forget to post some new comments on the content that we share with you, or give us suggestions for other ideas that you would like us to cover on the program. And with that, I'll send it back to you, Angus.
Indeed. And James and I together will be bringing you our perspectives on the daily Sikh news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And of course, as usual, we will indeed be taking a look at those great comments at the end of the show, so do stay tuned for that. But loads to get through today. James, what are you going to start us off with this morning?
Well, I've already brought up the hockey, but what I didn't bring up is that Ashdeep Bains, yes, he was a big part of the Abbotsford Canucks last season in reaching the Calder Cup Championship, and now he has made his way to the Vancouver Canucks yet once again. He has been brought up and he has been performing, but that's a talk and conversation for another show. So if you're a Vancouver fan for hockey, make sure that you put your comments about Ashdeep Bains. Yes, he is leading the way into the new realm of a new team. So let's move on though and look at some stories, and we are looking at the G7 summit coming up this week in Niagara Falls and the Niagara region in Ontario. What is different about this? Well, you could say protests, but I think the protests are quite common when it comes to the G7 summit, the G7 meetings, and pretty much any international events that are going on. Canada is walking a tightrope, though, and that has to do not only with the Khalistan referendum and dealing with India, but also Hong Kong activists plan on making their presence known as well. They are still looking at the incarceration of a reporter and journalist in China, and they are looking to raise concerns with the delegates and hopefully have Canada bring it up at the meetings, just as the Khalistan referendum should be brought up in terms of the transnational repression and the foreign interference at the hands of the India government. Now, there will be a planned protest, as I said, the Khalistan 24/7. That means that there are going to be around-the-clock protests going on throughout the Niagara region at different venues where meetings will be held. The Sikhs for Justice, as well as other organizations, are planning to be there in numbers, and they plan on protesting around the clock. That means that even at 3 a.m., as most people are asleep in their beds, there will be a presence there holding those Khalistan flags, bringing the color to the fall colors that are already surrounding the Niagara Falls and Niagara region. Now, with this, of course, they are looking at various participants in the meeting to get their message across. That starts, of course, with Anita Anand as the host, and she is welcoming her core G7 counterparts, including U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani, and top diplomats from France, Germany, Japan, and the UK. Now, as this continues, there's also a list of outreach countries that will also be in attendance, and that includes Australia, Brazil, South Korea, South Africa, Ukraine, and most critically, of course, the Indian External Affairs Minister, and they are looking to get the attention of the Canadian government with new information that we'll be covering shortly in another story. But at the end of the day, what has come to light is nothing more than just continued evidence piling up against not only India in their homeland, but here in Canada at the different diplomatic levels. And that is more information about the India government and China being so involved in transnational repression and foreign interference that the new information coming out is a bombshell, and it is set to really cause a lot of controversy when it comes to the G7 summit and allowing India once again to be a participant. As this continues, the 24/7 protest that the security forces have anticipated after the protest that took place at the recent Kananaskis summit in the springtime. And instead, this time, it's going to be a local and deeply personal rally that really poses a unique diplomatic challenge to the Canadian host because unlike Kananaskis, Niagara and that region is very wide open in terms of the transportation hubs and the ability for people to protest at the venues. Kananaskis was much more isolated and further out. The protests happened actually as satellite protests outside of Kananaskis. So this allows a very direct impact on the message that's being delivered there. Now, of course, we also know that there are going to be smaller groups that will be involved here. But there's also, the look at the pro-democracy process. We have seen protests in front of the China embassy here in Vancouver in the consulate on Granville Street for years and years. But again, they have pressured the Canadian government and the local police force to remove protesters from the streets in front of that consulate. This has been ongoing battles about the freedom and the right to express and freedom of gathering and so forth, as opposed to the right of the Chinese consulate to not feel intimidated by the protesters outside their doors. However, I should note that most of them were, essentially meditating outside of the gates of the Chinese embassy and the Chinese consulate, so there wasn't even a loud noise at all. It was some banners and some people that were there. And again, just like the Khalistan referendum, the Chinese government wanted Canada to shut down the protesters, make them all go away. And that's essentially what we see with India. So we'll watch and see how this plays out over the next week. We will get some video and images from those in attendance. And again, for our viewers, if you happen to be in attendance, be sure to email or send us links to videos and photos as well to share what your experience is at Niagara on the Lake. As we continue on, we will allow you to look at this article. It has been posted up on our Substack as it is very in-depth once again and looks at a lot of the different things as relating to Jimmy Lai, as well as the Khalistan protests and the different events that will be taking place in Niagara on the Lake. So again, you'll be able to read the full information. But it is going to be an interesting one for the simple fact that as we move on to our next story, it ties into a point that Keir Starmer is a representative of the UK whose intelligence agency it has just broken that they are the ones who actually intercepted phone calls with the government of India and their representatives in the relation to the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, the attempted assassination of Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, and others. So again, it is a big breakthrough that this is further allegations or further evidence that the India government was directly involved in the assassination of a Canadian citizen and Khalistan activist. Now, of course, for weeks they possessed no definitive evidence when it came to the individuals and the responsible agents or parties to his death. But as that continued to progress through the investigation, right up to the point that former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau brought the link to the India government up in the Canadian Parliament, it has now come up that the Five Eyes organization, and in particular the UK, are the ones that brought this communication to the Canadian government. At that time, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service opened up their own further investigation monitoring transmissions and communications, which brought forward more information and more evidence that directly link Modi's second in command to these assassinations and assassination attempts. Now, as this continues on, of course, we know that the Five Eyes work very closely, and they are what is considered the gold standard of intelligence when it comes to the international intelligence community. And as such, the information is very credible. It's not coming from some undisclosed third party. This is coming direct from the intelligence agencies as a shared dossier on what happened with Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Now, what may even surprise some is that it didn't just stop there. We know that the duty to warn has been issued to a number of different citizens throughout Canada and in the US when it comes to the transnational repression of the India government. As a result, there have been points that the government is basically telling them they're on their own. They recommend, changing their habits, getting out of town for a while things cool down, hiring their own security in marked cars to be parked outside of their homes or their businesses. These are just some of the suggestions instead of the government actually taking proactive steps to provide protection for these people who are under threat as Canadian citizens and on Canadian soil. Now, as this continues on, though, we also wanted to bring up a very important case that Angus has spoken about quite a few times on this show, and that was Avtar Singh Kanda. And his name came up in these conversations and these intercepted communications and phone calls. It turns out that he was one of the three main individuals named by the India government and representatives that they wanted on the hit list. And that, of course, included Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who was assassinated just days after Mr. Kanda had passed in a Birmingham, UK hospital. He was, of course, passed away, but his death was attributed to leukemia, very aggressive form of myeloid leukemia. They claim that it had been it took him from a state of health all the way to death within a matter of days or, possibly weeks, but a very, very quick time that you would not see generally associated with that type of cancer to go that rapidly, that aggressive, with absolutely no symptoms or signs within those days ahead. Now, of course, the human rights advocates and his family have been calling on an investigation into that death, claiming that it is more likely, and the international community seems to be coming more and more to the same consensus, that it was probably a poisoning, an intentional act of transnational repression and murder, and that's what it comes down to. So again, we're surprised to see that this information is being put out publicly now, but we're not surprised that the India government was involved. And again, of course, the other person that was referenced in those three names that were in that call was, of course, included in that Mr. Panoon. So again, huge jump in information, a huge announcement by the Canadian government, the courts, and of course, the politicians who are calling on the India government to stop their activities when it comes to such. And it's going to be interesting as well, as I said, between Starmer, between Marco Rubio, and of course, Canada. Are they going to grow some fortitude to go after India and actually set the record straight, saying, we know what you've done, we know that it's you, we don't have time for you to play your games and just dismiss it, because it cannot continue. And that's where I think that these nations need to stand up to India and to heck with the trade agreements that they are instead pursuing and ignoring human rights. They need to stand up now more than ever and say, okay, these are the facts. Here's the evidence, as India has been ongoing in their denial that there's any evidence whatsoever. And here it clearly shows that they have the recordings, they have the evidence, and people have been asking for it. It has now been put forward, so there is no question whatsoever about India's involvement, and they need to be held accountable. And we, really appreciate all of the work of the Five Eye Alliance for not only capturing this information, but also putting it out to the public. Now, as a quick coverage, as we wrap up this segment of the top stories, we're back here in Surrey, British Columbia, where there is a siege going on when it comes to, of course, more shootings, more violence, and of course, the announcements by the government and law enforcement when it comes to the task force. It was announced late last week, I believe it was Friday afternoon, when the announcement officially made its way out, and that was that the Canadian Border Services Agency is ejecting 3 Indian nationals. And the reason why they are turning to the CBSA to assist in actually deporting people as opposed to bringing them into court for being involved in the extortion rings is simply that British Columbia has the highest threshold of evidence in order for a Crown prosecutor to forward and file charges against an individual. BC seems to be the hardest one for police to get the Crown to move on those charges. As a result, instead of a very lengthily drawn out trial, huge expenses, and no guaranteed outcome, they have decided that they are going to start ejecting people based on immigration concerns. And as I said, 3 individuals have been ejected now, and there are 78 more that are being targeted right at this moment by the Canadian Border Services Agency, as well as the task force into the problem. However, with that said, it seemed like a breath was being taken and a big sigh of relief. However, as I was saying, it has not ended the problem. It has not even curbed it. It was less than 24 hours later when another home was shot up, just actually about 5 minutes from our studios here in Metro Vancouver. Another home shot up overnight. This continues as there are over 69 different extortion cases that are being investigated, with the police believing there are much more. However, a lot of people have not come forward, and over half of those has resulted in gunshots. This included earlier in October, where a young lady was sleeping in her bed in the middle of the night, and a bullet pierced through her wall and hit her in her own bed. She has been upgraded to more. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember what level she was. She was in critical care, and now she is stable. That's where I was going with that. My apologies. But she is in stable condition, but she was not the intended target. They believe that either there was someone else at the residence or it was the wrong residence altogether. But the police have confirmed that she had absolutely no way of knowing that she was at risk, because she was not the intended target of the shooters. And again, she remains in hospital and is in stable condition and improving. We hope that that continues. With the extortion task force, though, they are again continuing through Mayor Brenda Locke, as we covered last week, pushing for another 150 police officers to be dispatched to Surrey and the region to deal with this matter. And really, it is, it is something that they are taking very seriously. They are putting more money into it. But it appears that the 40 officers that are working in this task force are still outnumbered by the gang members, and the amount of information that they need to go through in order to investigate each and every case. But they also, as I said, don't have the resources to provide security for all of the individuals that are being targeted in these extortion threats. This comes again, as we know, on October the 27th, the violence hit the heart of the local business community when Darshan Sassi was a 68-year-old prominent Abbotsford businessman was shot and killed in front of his home. Just over the weekend, they did hold a memorial for him, as well as a candlelight vigil that the public showed up in great numbers. We'll cover that a bit more tomorrow night with some of the footage and images of that vigil. And other than that, we are going to wrap this up to pass it back to Angus, because we don't want to take up all of our time. I know Angus has some very important stories coming up tonight as well, so we want to make sure that we get all information to you. Once again, these stories are already up on our Substack page, so you can get much more detail and a chronological listing of the attacks in the Surrey and Metro Vancouver region as they've happened over the last 6 months to a year, Angus.
Yeah, thanks, James. And it's no surprise this news about the intelligence about the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar coming from. It came from one of the Five Eyes nations, and as it turns out, it was GCHQ, General Central Headquarters here in the United Kingdom. Of course, GCHQ has been around for a very long time, and it has this huge network of just incredible technology that just listens in. It's got the ears and eyes all over the world. It uses satellites. It taps into phone lines. It taps into satellite communications, the internet, etc. It just monitors and listens, and it just soaks up information. It is one of the most powerful forces on this planet for surveillance. I mean, great if you're a friend of it, but God help you if you're an enemy of it, because it has uncovered all sorts of plots and nastiness going on around the world. And of course, unsurprisingly, it did pick up these communications related to the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. So, of course, Justin Trudeau, when he stood up in the Canadian Parliament to essentially publicly and very openly accuse India of one of the most outrageous diplomatic acts in recent times, there's no way he would have done that without credible evidence. And it's, of course, it turns out this is where the credible evidence came from. And of course, the Five Eyes, we do share not all, we share the vast majority of our intelligence amongst the CIA, CSIS in the US, etc., and our counterparts down in New Zealand and Australia. And this information, of course, is all beneath the surface. A huge amount of really important intelligence is shared so that we can all coordinate as Five Eyes democratic nations. We can coordinate our responses both beneath the surface through our intelligence operations and, of course, diplomatically, very publicly in the front of the world's cameras or on our television screens. Our politicians receive a section of this intelligence, and they can then form their policies based on this. So likewise, there is no way that Justin Trudeau would ever have stood up without credible evidence supplied by the intelligence agencies to accuse India. And that clearly is what he's done. So GCHQ did pick up this absolutely crucial piece of information, this communication between the Indian operatives, RAW, etc. In other words, the planning behind the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. It's there, it's in black and white, and it's interesting that India has ever since that first accusation, they have maintained this stance of it wasn't us, it's nonsense. Where's the evidence? Even just literally like 2 weeks ago, the Indian High Commissioner in Canada, Patnaik, he actually sat there in an interview with CBC to say and said, "Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence?" And yet we all know the evidence is there. The Five Eyes nations know the evidence is there. The Canadian government know the intelligence is there. Even Mark Carney, as he shook Narendra Modi's hands, knows the evidence is there. So again, it's the worst kept secret in the world. India was behind these murders. It is most likely that they were behind the murder of Avtar Singh Kandar. So, and again, we have this deepening frustration, this ongoing frustration that our leaders, and particularly the likes of Mark Carney and Keir Starmer, shake the hand of Narendra Modi, the very hand of the man who is behind these murders of our citizens on our soil. And fingers crossed again, and you're right to raise Avtar Singh Kandar, James, because, we will not let this lie. We will still keep the pressure on here in the UK about the death of Avtar Singh Kandar. Deeply suspicious. His family's barrister, Michael Polak, is still pushing away. And he is calling not just for an inquest, but there's an important nuance here. He is calling for a judge-led inquiry. That's more important, because if it's led by a judge, it means that evidence can be held in camera, as it's called, which means in secret behind the scenes so the public can't see it, which means that he can then, or her, the judge, can ask the intelligence agencies, our own intelligence agencies, MI5, MI6, and indeed GCHQ, to bring their evidence into the court. And if in a public inquest, they would not be able to do that, because they would say, well, it reveals too many of our sources. We can't let this information is not safe for the public, the general public, to know about. It will damage our own capabilities. But a judge-led inquiry means that this evidence can be brought in front of the judge. It's all held in secret, so we'll never know what was actually said. But it means that the actual intelligence, like you pointed out for the murder of Nijjar, can now be brought into an inquiry, and then can actually actually affect the judge's decision, which otherwise wouldn't be allowed in an open inquest. So that distinction is very important. So, James, yes, I think the ball is still very much rolling. The momentum is still very much there. The public is pushing that ball. Our governments are not pushing that ball of momentum to try and get things to change. We certainly will not let the death of Avtar Singh Kandar go away. We will still be pushing Michael Polak and the family and all his supporters to keep this inquiry open. Likewise for Najjar, justice must be served, and we will keep the pressure on the likes of Carney and Starmer, James. We will not let this lie.
Absolutely, and not to confuse anybody out there, is just to make a clear distinction, is that anybody who is charged or involved in a physical injury or death will not be just exported out of the country or deported. They will face justice here in Canada. It won't cover those levels of crimes.
Indeed, James, indeed. And apologies, we're having a few technical issues this morning if weird things are popping up on your screens. So apologies for that. Yes, so I'm going to move on to my first story. There's a lot of news coming out of Punjab today. And it's, I'll play a bit of background video here. This is, as I talk and I talk through this story, these are the events going on over the last few days in Punjab, particularly at Chandigarh. And the Punjab University, there's a huge story brewing, and has been really for the last few days. And there is, as I say, there's an awful lot going on. I can't. Sorry, I seem to have lost James's picture. So apologies to our audience if we lost James's picture here. I was just press a few buttons, see if I can get James back. And no, I can't. So apologies. Anyway, we'll just have to listen to James's voice on this one. So apologies for that. Anyway,
I'm still here. So.
James is still very much there. So. Yes, Punjab University. Sorry, I'm making a right mess of this. Here we go. Well, I can't get James back. I can't get anything. Here we go. Right, so apologies. Let's try this segment again. Sorry to the audience. Right, Punjab University. Now, big events going on here. It all revolves around the central government. The BJP government has tried to impose its power on Punjab University. And the centre, as it's called, this is the central control of India's universities right across India. The centre has tried to effectively seize control of Punjab University. Punjab University has what's called a Senate. The Senate is the decision-making body. It is the body that controls the university. And the centre has now tried to take control of the university's Senate. And as a result, it's sparked this huge debate now about democracy and federalism going on in India. Punjab University's top decision-making syndicate to function properly in the past has always held elections every year to form the members of this syndicate. And this university is one of the oldest in India, so it is a very, very significant thing that's going on. And what the centre has tried to do with Punjab's Senate is reduce it from a membership of 90 people down to 24. Now, the central government's decision is to dissolve the Senate and the syndicate of Punjab University and replace it with a nominated body through an executive notification. And this has triggered a political and academic uproar in Punjab. And there we go. So we can get James back. Oh, there we go. Right, we've got James back.
And now you've disappeared, Angus. Oh, there we go.
There we go. So apologies for that. So, okay, the central government's decision is, as I said, to dissolve the Senate and the syndicates of Punjab University and replace it with this nominated body. Now, this 28th of October notification amends. I'm just going to go through a bit of the history and what's been going on here, because there's a lot of sort of detail here. I'm trying to sort of summarise it as quickly as I can. But this October the 28th notification amended the original Punjab University Act of 1947 back in partition, reducing the university's top governing body from its 91 membership body to 24, so huge reduction, and abolishing the graduates constituency completely, replacing its elected syndicate with a largely nominated structure. The graduates constituency was effectively, it was a large part of this election process for the syndicate and the Senate. They were actually elected by the graduates. It's called the graduate constituency. Now, the last Senate's term ended on the 31st of October last year, but no move was made to hold fresh elections. And that's a delay that many political leaders and faculty members had warned was just a precursor to what's coming, this overhaul of the system. And indeed, they were proved correct. Now, interestingly, these changes that have been proposed by the centre have been opposed by every single political party and, of course, academia, except for the BJP. Yes, surprise, surprise. In other words, it's a more saffronisation, as it's called. It's more political control of the BJP, and, of course, by the BJP, read the RSS. It is the RSS trying to take control of Punjab University, as indeed they have of the SGPC, of all the democratic bodies of the Sikh community in the Punjab. Yes, the university stands as one of the final bastions of Sikhi in the Punjab, and now the RSS is making moves to control Punjab University. Now, the undertaking over protesting, there's another part to this as well, which is again quite sinister, is that just a few weeks ago, we heard that an undertaking, an affidavit was actually sent to all students at Punjab University that your existence at the university and any future admissions will only be conditional upon you all sign an affidavit that you will never protest. And if you do protest, it will always be with the permission of the university, and any protest will be held in designated parts, and any protest can only contain students of the university. There must be no outsiders allowed. So you can suddenly start to see how the university is putting all these building blocks in place, these stepping stones, to restrict any protest against its changes it knew it was bringing in. In other words, if you want to stay as a student at the university, you've got to sign an affidavit that says you will not protest, or if you do, it will be under our control. We will dictate to when you can protest and how you can protest. In other words, full control. Now, unsurprisingly, students have been out there in force protesting on the campus over the last few days. Now, a quick bit of history about the university itself. The university was originally established in 1882 in Lahore. It's hugely historic. It is one of the oldest universities in India. So it really is extraordinarily significant in the academic landscape of the whole of India, not just Punjab. But it was originally established in Lahore, which is now obviously part of Pakistan. But in 1947, at partition, a new campus was established and incorporated under the 1947 Act passed by the East Punjab legislature, and the Punjab University Act is the governing statute of the university. That is the important piece of legislation. Now, the university functioned as a state university with affiliated colleges spread across the whole sort of region, the whole Punjab region, including Haryana and Himachal Pradesh. And its centre moved originally from Shimla to Rohtak, then to Jalandhar, before it finally ended up in its current campus at Chandigarh. Now, in 1966, we had that States Reorganisation Act. Now, in 1966, when Punjab was divided into what is now present-day Punjab and Haryana, the university became an interstate body corporate under the Punjab Reorganisation Act 1966, passed by Parliament. So even though the university came to be controlled by the centre officially, Punjab continues to hold, the state of Punjab continues to hold a major stake. As an interstate body corporate, Punjab University does not have the status of a fully fledged central university. Now that's the important legal ease behind it. In other words, it is not controlled by the centre like other Indian universities. It has its own statute-enabled autonomy. In other words, the Punjab state has a large stake in the control of its own university. So what happened was the Gazette notification was issued under Section 72 of that 1966 Act, which empowers the centre to modify state laws governing interstate institutions through what it calls exceptions and modifications. In other words, that 1966 Act then allowed the centre now to modify the regulations of the university to make these changes. And under the revised Section 13, the Senate, and here's where it really, really became controversial, this Senate will consist of no more than 24 members, or known as ordinary fellows, replacing the earlier 91-member structure, of which 47 were democratically elected. So in the old structure, over half of the members were democratically elected. Now, I'm going to show up now, if I can just find it, I'm going to show up to you. This is, let's just pause that video, and I'm just going to show you. This is the new structure that is being proposed. Now, I've colour-coded it just to give you an idea of just how it's changed. So originally, more than half were elected by the graduates and the alumni of the university. The new Senate that they're bringing in is made up of 24 members and 7 what they call ex officio members. Ex officio basically means they are members by their status. So it usually includes likes of the Chief Justice. These are high-ranking people who then are sort of brought in because they're just by the virtue of the fact that they're already high-ranking in society, and therefore they're brought into the universities. That's what ex officio means. So basically there are 31 members in total in the new Senate. Don't forget, this Senate is going to be the body that controls this university, controls all its decision-making, the structure of it, everything. So this is the government, effectively, of Punjab University. Its new structure will be, now I've highlighted these in red, means they are nominated by the Chancellor. In orange or amber, this means they are members that are not just directly nominated, but they are effectively controlled by the state and therefore effectively the BJP, the RSS. And the black ones at the bottom, these are the ones that are, at least on the face of it, elected. So ultimately, what this means, just to quickly go through this, 2 members will be eminent alumni nominated by the Chancellor. Now don't forget, the Chancellor is going to be himself nominated effectively by the BJP, the RSS. In other words, the guy in charge of the university is going to be a puppet of the RSS. You have to take that as read. So he in turn then has the control to elect, firstly, the 2 eminent alumni. So he controls who he elects as the 2 eminent alumni. 2 MLAs, that's members of the Legislative Assembly. He will likewise nominate those 2 members. Another 6 will be nominated directly by the Chancellor. Of course, there will be 7 ex officios. Now, of course, these are state people. So in other words, these are high-ranking members of the Indian state. Again, read BJP, RSS, etc. 4 principals of affiliated colleges. So these are the heads of the colleges. Now, who's going to be head of the college? Of course, people ultimately nominated by the Chancellor. Teachers of affiliated colleges, ultimately, they will be recruited by the principals of the colleges, who in turn have been recruited by the Chancellor. So you can start to see every single one, bar the bottom 4, effectively are nominated either directly or indirectly by the Chancellor. And the Chancellor, of course, will be himself elected or nominated by the RSS. So you can start to see suddenly how the RSS are wresting control of Punjab University. This is why students are now taking to the streets. They recognise exactly what is going on here. This is a power grab of one of the final bastions of Sikhi and Sikh independence, Sikh culture, Sikh heritage in the Punjab. It is now being taken over by the RSS. This is why the anger is brewing. And if I tell you, those bottom 4, those ordinary 4, what we call the ordinary fellows, they ultimately, even though they're elected from the various departments, they have to be, quote, approved by the Chancellor. In other words, every single member of the new Senate has to be either approved or nominated by the Chancellor. In other words, there is absolutely zero democratic accountability in the control of Punjab University if this happens. You can understand why the students are now suddenly. It's not just students; it's right across India now. People are suddenly waking up to what's going on here. People are starting to join in the protest against this. So ultimately, and then likewise, the other body that's affected by this is the Senate. Now, there is also the syndicate. The syndicate is the university's executive arm. This also has been restructured. So the earlier 15-member body elected from among the Senate fellows will be replaced by a smaller, largely nominated body comprising the Vice-Chancellor as chairperson, the Secretary of Higher Education, Government of India, the Directors of Public Instructions of Punjab and Chandigarh, and 1 Senate member nominated by the Chancellor. And the Vice-Chancellor, again himself a nominee of the Chancellor, will nominate the other 10 members, including deans, professors, associate professors, etc. In other words, the syndicate, which is the executive arm, that's the arm that actually then goes out to enact the policies, they likewise will be RSS controlled. Again, no democratic accountability. Now, why is this happening? So the question is, look, why is this brought in? Well, we know why it's brought in. The students and the Sikh community in the Punjab know why it's brought in. The official reason is that the previous Chancellor, a guy called M. Venkaiah Naidu, in February 2021, so a few years ago, he originally suggested, look, we need changes under this new national education policy of 2020, because this current system, and it was, I have to say, and we have to admit, the current system is huge. It involves elections right across, not just Punjab, but Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, the whole, in fact, Maharashtra, because it has to include the votes of alumni as well, not just students at the university, but alumni. So the whole procedure to elect these members was huge. It was vast. And so what the previous Chancellor said, it's too complex, it's costing too much money, it's too time consuming, it's just the logistics themselves are just too complicated. So we need to change it. Yeah, okay, fair enough. That in itself is a reasonable argument. But what this has done is gifted an opportunity to the RSS to do this, to do exactly what they're doing. So these changes represent a complete overhaul of the governance model of the university. Now, until now, the Senate was a broad-based representation body. It was nearly half of whom members were elected through a complex, but it was a highly participatory process. It was highly democratic. The new structure allows for little electoral representation. It concentrates power in the hands of the Vice-Chancellor and the Chancellor, both of whom are directly connected to the central government, of course the RSS. And the previous elections included voices from right across, as I said, Punjab, Chandigarh, Haryana, Uttarakhand, Rajasthan, Himachal Pradesh and Delhi. The majority of elected members were, of course, then from the Punjab. And in contrast, this new Senate is reduced to an exclusive body of just 24 ordinary fellows, the scope for elections to just a handful of seats. Most members, including those termed persons of eminence, will now be nominated by the Chancellor, as I talked about. And likewise, the syndicate has been turned into a nominated administrative council. It will no longer be accountable to an elected Senate, but will instead operate under direct executive authority. Elections have been eliminated altogether. Decision-making will flow top-down from the Chancellor and Vice-Chancellor. And so ultimately, and this is what the students are all protesting about, this means that what was once a three-tiered democratic governance system with checks and balances between the Senate, the syndicate and the Vice-Chancellor has now been replaced by a centralised administrative hierarchy dominated by nominees of the centre, in turn nominated and controlled by the RSS. So I want to do a quick timeline of events just for our audience who want to know exactly what's going on. And whilst I'm doing this, let me just play I'll continue this video because again, it just gives you an idea of the students protesting as well whilst I'm talking. So this is a timeline of what's been going on. The 28th of October, the Ministry of Education issued this notification that amended the Punjab University Senate and the Punjab University Syndicate. Between the 1st and the 4th of November, student groups at the university began mobilising. Protests at the campus gate number 2, demands to rescind the notification, opposition to the new structure. The following day, the 5th of November, the centre issues a notification that rescinds the earlier order or places it in abeyance. They pause it and states the changes will be effectively postponed. This is actually as a result because the mobilisation of the students was huge. So, of course, the centre's sort of taken a step back and put it on hold. Now, the university administration also at this time withdrew that no protest affidavit. Remember I talked about that affidavit where students basically were forced to sign an affidavit saying we will not protest or we will only protest on conditions. As a result of the protest, the university has now withdrawn that affidavit for first year students. The 8th to the 9th of November, over the weekend, the university declares the 10th and 11th of November as holidays in anticipation of forthcoming protests and shutdowns. They've tightened up access rules, so now suddenly you can only get on the university campus with ID cards, and outsiders, this is important, outsiders are now barred at the campus gates. The 10th of November today. Now, massive protests and rallies have been planned. It's basically been called a shutdown by student groups under the banner of the PU, that's Punjab University, Bachao Morcha. Student groups maintain they will march, they will lock down the gates if their demands are not met. So that's the timeline of events. So today, and reports no doubt will come out as today unfolds, that there is a huge gathering planned today at the university. Basically, this is what, as I said in the introduction, this is so significant, this, and I'll come on to why it's so significant. But big things are happening at the university. How is the Indian media covering this? Well, ultimately, unsurprisingly, the Godi media are putting a completely different spin on this. They say, look, we need these changes. They're saying, look, the whole original process, this democratic process, was too politicized. So they're saying the new changes are depoliticizing this process. They're saying it's bringing it back into the university control and saying it's just making it's making the decision making much faster. It's making the decision making more in line with the other universities across India, and it's giving the centre firmer control of decision making processes. Now, of course, on the face of it, all those seem perfectly reasonable, unless, of course, you realise what it's all about. It's all about the centre, again, read the RSS, taking control of the university. Now, why is this so significant? And I'm just going to speak briefly now. And I hope to God that the students at least some of the students in the Punjab hear this, because this is really important. Students' protests have, throughout history, and particularly in modern history in the 20th century, have literally shaken the world. Students are in quite a unique position in society, in their lives. It is a time when they are young. They are full of motivation, enthusiasm. They are full of idealism. They are full of the real passion to change the world. They are young adults. They have seen the world. They are entering the world for the first time as adults. And they realise they can see injustice when they recognise it, because they are innocent. They're not beaten down like many of us older folks. They're not beaten down by cynical sadness of the way of the world. They are still full of hope, full of enthusiasm, full of passion to change things. They recognise oppression. They recognise injustice, unfairness when they see it, and they want to do something about it. And more importantly, students have less to lose. When you're older, the likes of me and James, we're old, we've got mortgages to pay, we've got debts to pay, we've got families, we've got responsibilities, we've got so much to lose. It is harder for us to take on the state, because the state have us in its control. The state have got its claws into us, and the state can remove almost everything that we've spent a lifetime building up. As a student, you have very little to lose. You have the world at your feet. And this is why students have the power and the passion to get out there and change the world, because the state has less control over you. You can get out there and you can make demands, because the state cannot take so much away from you as it can from the rest of us. And this is why student protests the world over have literally shaken the world. They have brought down governments. Let me give you some examples. In 1989, the Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia. The Velvet Revolution, students brought down the communist government. They themselves, students, did this. Tiananmen Square in China, one of the most powerful authoritarian regimes on this planet throughout history. The communist government of China was nearly brought down by the students protesting in Tiananmen Square. It didn't bring it down, but it has brought a huge revolutionary change in China. China is changing as a result of students' protests. Last year, Bangladesh, the Bangladeshi government, Sheikh Hasina, was brought down by student protests. Nepal, likewise, student protests are bringing down and brought down the government, or brought the government to its knees. Now, students in Punjab, it is unlikely you will bring down the Indian government, but you have the power to bring about massive change. You have the power to wrest back control of this bastion of Sikh communal control of this ancient historic University of Punjab. In other words, do not give in to the Indian state. Do not let the RSS take control of your university. Get out there, build, spread the word. And what I'm seeing overnight as news is coming in is that word is spreading across India. People from around India, other aligned people, are now joining these protests. This protest is gathering momentum. This protest has huge potential. Do not be cowed. Do not be bullied. Do not be intimidated into submission. Keep this protest going. You must win this fight, because what's at stake in this fight isn't just Punjab University. It's a greater story. It is a bigger story. This is the principles of Sikh community power in the Punjab that has been wrestled away by the RSS, has been wrestled away by its puppets BJP. It has been wrestled away through whether it's the Shiromani Akali Dal, whether it's the SGPC, whatever. But the university must not fall. This is part of the fight back of the Sikh community. This is the fight back of the Sikh people against the Indian state. And to me, these are the seeds of Khalistan. Khalistan will come about. As you know, and I always talk about unforeseeable catalytic events. It takes events like this. We need the students to understand the power and significance of the concept of Khalistan. Because if you take this concept of Khalistan on board and you align it with what you're doing in the university, this is exactly what Khalistan is about. It is about freedom. It is about freedom to express yourselves. It is about freedom of academia. It is the freedom of our society. It is the freedom of speech. It is the freedom to practice your culture and your religion. Essentially, these are all elements that are also involved in what is going on at the university. So my message to the students at the university and to all those in the Punjab who are aligned with this, and all those around all the states around Punjab who are aligning with this, join this protest. Go support these guys, because what's at stake here is more than just a simple Senate of a university. There's more principles at stake. These are the principles of freedom of the Punjab people, not just Sikhs, but the whole of Punjab people, but particularly the Sikh people. So James, my message out there is really powerful. You literally have the power to change the world. You can change India. And you yourselves, if you really believe it, and you should believe it, you have the power to bring about Khalistan.
Absolutely, Angus. And let's not forget that there are a lot of the alumni who are spread out in the diasporas around the globe. And it is important that you take this information and expand on it and share it with the wider masses as well, as the information, once again, permeates out across the borders of international concern, then it will have a greater multiplier of force. With that said, of course, I know that during the various events in Metro Vancouver, particularly in Surrey with the parades and all of that, I've seen a presence of the Punjab University Chandigarh here in Surrey for the alumni. So again, for all of those who are concerned and for students around the world, make sure that you learn about this and you share the information as well, because it really can just multiply the voices and make people listen.
Indeed, absolutely. So we'll keep you informed as things progress over in Chandigarh over the next day or two. So our support and love and huge support goes out to all those crowds gathering today in Chandigarh at the university. So good luck, and do keep us informed, and we in turn will inform our audience of things as they progress. Right, James, clock's marching down. We must rush through our comments as usual. So Grow Up AZ starts us off today. And I say loads of comments still coming in after my discussion with Congressman Franks about this accusation of whether the CIA tried to assassinate Narendra Modi. Grow Up AZ makes a very simple statement. India has always been anti-Sikh. Of course it has, James. I mean, there you go, James. That story I've just been talking about at university just sums it up beautifully.
Absolutely, and we've covered so many stories going back in the history, even before partition, where the caste system was there and trying to oppress the Sikh people. So again, we've seen it going way back. And
DX Bones says India is basically just one big lie. It is. India is the whole structure of Indian governance is built on one big lie, the caste system for a start. But as you say, the West must remain powerful. India's secretly backstabbing West. Yeah, India is totally unaccountable. We've seen it over and over. The fact that it's murdering citizens of Canada, of the UK, of the US speaks volumes for what India's up to. And Gagandeep Sidhu says India's famous for what's going on. Likewise, Modi's blaming this on the US because he has an election running in one of his states. And I won't repeat what I said, there's rude language. But ultimately, this is the tactics of not just Modi, but the BJP, is that ultimately all they care about, and this is the thing about Narendra Modi, he doesn't care. He does not care about what the world thinks. I mean, he does to some degree, but all he needs to do is stay in power. And to do that, all he needs to do is he just needs to keep his domestic audience on side. Now, he controls the Indian media, so it's easily done. So everything that Modi does isn't to impress foreign leaders. He ultimately doesn't care about foreign leaders. He just cares about staying in power in India. And to do that, he just needs to manipulate events, and particularly the narrative in India, to stay in power, James.
Absolutely. And that's why he monitors and controls a lot of the international media that's accessible by people within his borders. And that is control.
And next set of comments. Beg your pardon. Sorry, there's a timeline. There we go. Ranjit says, now America and the world should understand how the Hindu leaders are defaming other countries, nations and communities. India was never a single country. This is to remind us, under the British rule, India was united essentially by brute force for Britain, the British Empire's convenience. And that did, of course, include the Punjab. The Sikhs became their own country. When the British left, they bid on the donkeys, basically handed control over to the Brahmins. And as you say, I hope that America and the Western world will help us in making our own country khalistan. We are ready to fight any kind of war. Well, what I would say is we don't need physically to fight a physical, violent war anymore. We now run, the Western world particularly, but India supposedly runs on democracy. So the only war we need to fight now, James, is a democratic war. And the point is, because we're not taking it on militarily, we're taking it on peacefully and democratically. This is why we will win the war. This is why khalistan will happen, because we're fighting it democratically. Unlike India, which is fighting it through literal violence and brute force and killing or whatever, is that we are fighting democratically, and the people, as I always say, James, always win in the end.
Absolutely. And that's why it's even more important that we continue with bringing the truth out, because we know that India is such a big player in the false information game online, especially on platforms that reach mass audiences around the world. So again, it's important that we keep pushing the truth out there to counter that false propaganda that comes out by Modi and the RSS.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a sad reminder from Mr. Mann. Buddhism, of course, was driven out of India a very long time ago. But Mr. Mann says Buddhism will come back to India because the Khalsa army will hand back all the Buddha viharas, that's their temples, the Buddhist temples, and libraries back to Buddhists, now occupied by Brahmins with the help of Muslim invaders. And the irony here is that Buddhism was essentially driven out of India by the rise of Hinduism. So the irony is that it was with the help of Muslim invaders. But the irony being now, it's the right-wing extremists, the Hindutva extremists, that are now trying to eject the Muslims from Hindustan, from their own Hindu Rashtra. So ultimately what Mr. Mann's saying is, of course, the establishment of khalistan means that, as we keep saying, that all religions will be free to practice their own religion, is that Buddhists will be welcome in Khalistan. There could be a rise of Buddhism in Khalistan, and by extension, indeed, the Buddhists might start re-emerging in India, what will be left of India itself, James.
Absolutely. And keeping in mind that once Khalistan is formed, it's going to work as a model for other regions to start balkanizing India. And we're going to see the Buddhists and others who can recapture what was once theirs and what they've lost over the generations.
And, Daisy, next set of comments. Amakara, this is quite poignant, this comment. Thank you, Amakara, for this. You say that you got married 8 years ago, around the same time as Jaggi did. Of course, Jaggi went to the Punjab to get married, and literally the day after his wedding, he popped outside to get some cigarettes, and he was suddenly bundled into the back of a van, never to be seen of again. And as Amakara says, Amakara got married pretty much the same time. And you still remember yourself and your wife hearing about the arrest and talking about how your weddings coincided at the same time. And you expected him to be released soon, shortly after. 8 years have passed since then. And of course, your life has moved on. All our lives have moved on. But Jaggi's didn't. As you say, you built a beautiful home. You welcomed your lovely daughter. Another one on the way. Well, congratulations on that. We've been blessed to live a normal, happy life, something that we often take for granted. Likewise, we do. But poor Jaggi, he's still there. He's locked up. He's been tortured, for heaven's sake. This is a British citizen locked up, bundled into the back of a van, tortured, held in prison ever since for 8 years. All our lives have moved on, James. But Jaggi's hasn't, and this is why we must never forget the plight of Jaggi until he gets released.
Yeah, I found this to be a very pointed, but a very poignant and emotional posting. And I thank very much you for posting this, but also I wish you and your family well, and congratulations on your second child on the way.
Indeed, and AKJ's response, I mean, I won't read it in detail, but basically a very suitable response. Thank you for sharing. The Khalsa Panth will indeed continue to fight for his freedom. And, this is interesting. I put up this little thread because this actually highlights an issue that we've got at the moment. I've noticed, James, that our numbers, our viewing numbers, are really, really down over the last, particularly when we've been talking about India a lot. Unsurprisingly, we do know our channel, of course, is demonetized because we're talking about what we talk about. We are banned from India, but we also know that YouTube is doing everything it appears in its power, and the Indian agents operating in Google and YouTube itself are doing everything in their power to try and throttle our traffic, to control us, to try and basically restrict our viewership. And Gurpreet Kaur said, look, my comment gets deleted about watching the channel, actually somebody else's channel, a similar aligned channel, attacking India. And I've noticed it's when we have shows that attack India, our viewing numbers are down by probably 75%. And Gurpreet says, watch this channel to get more information about India. Your comment keeps getting deleted. Stay Safe came in to say, likewise with Stay Safe. In fact, Stay Safe said, I got email reminders about the guidelines. In other words, it appears that Hindutva are all over our channel. They're seeing comments and they're reporting them. They're reporting comments as spam or offensive, whatever, which means that their mates in YouTube can then say, let's delete that. So in other words, sadly, we are under attack by Hindutva. They know how effective we are being. So all we can do to fight back against this is just to appeal to our audience. Please keep spreading the word, particularly if you're in the Punjab. If you're in India, please tell more people about us, because of course our biggest potential audience is India, especially if you're in the Punjab. Get more people to get on YouTube. There are ways around it. Change your settings, get on VPNs, but do try and access our channel. If you want to know what's really going on in India, if you want to know really what is happening, please spread the word. We've got to get we can't do it through YouTube. YouTube's algorithm is deliberately trying to close us down. So it's up to our audience to get the word out there, James.
Absolutely. And the more people that are out there, the more people that share, like, and subscribe, then it actually does help to counter some of that restriction that they're placing on us. But again, we're being shadow banned extremely frequently. So again, your help in that regard as a viewer and a participant in the show is muchly appreciated.
And our final set, TC signs us off with good coverage of mental health. James, that was a very important story that you covered there. And likewise, a tribute to the Sikh soldiers as we approach Remembrance Day. I think it's tomorrow, actually, paying tribute to them. And AKJ again gets the final sign off. There's a paragraph talking about how it is outrageous and it's an affront to democracy that our government has not done anything about it, and we will not let it lie. And as you finally sign off, on behalf of all the viewers, we extend our sincere thanks to James and Angus and the entire Satluj team for our continued dedication to delivering real news and raising awareness. The reason we do this is because it's obvious we are passionately aligned, not just with Sikhi, but with the basic principles of democracy and the rule of law. We cannot hide the truth. We've got to keep getting the truth out there, James. This is why we're here. And thank you to our wonderful audience, our loyal audience who stick with us through thick and thin. Because again, as we keep saying, we can't do this without you. We are a team. It's not just the Satluj TV team on this side. It's also you out there. You are, our audience, are part of the Satluj TV team, because we need you guys, not just to keep commenting and sending us stories, but also to spread the word and to spread the truth. The most important thing is it's the truth. It is the truth that we need to get out there, James.
Absolutely. And on all of the videos, you can find a share icon, and you can share that through your Facebook, through your Twitter, all of that sort of thing. And it'll actually bring people directly to the Satluj TV page to view it. So it helps with the numbers on the YouTube channel as well.
Indeed. And as AKJ signs off in the end, Khalistan Zindabad, the truth will prevail and the people always will in the end. So Khalistan Zindabad indeed. But that was it for another day. Thanks so much for watching Perspectives. Do keep the comments coming in. Thanks for all of you who have been commenting, and indeed those of you who have been emailing us with links and stuff. You do know who you are, and that is very much appreciated. But do keep the comments coming in. Don't forget, you can of course message us directly at message@satlujtv.com if you want to talk to us directly. We do read every email, so thank you for those. But that's it for another day. Thanks so much for watching. It is a goodbye from me. It is a goodbye from James.
Stay safe, everyone.
You have, of course, been watching Perspectives. We will see you next time.